Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. Hi budget babes, hi budget bros. Welcome if you are new to my YouTube channel. If you're returning, welcome back, you guys. Hello, I'm so excited to be here today making this video. If you guys are new to my channel, I am a budget coach that makes budgeting easy and simple for you. And thank you guys so much for all the freaking support. You know, a lot of you guys don't always leave comments, you don't always say things, but I get the messages that you guys send me and it means a lot to me. Thank you everybody that booked me for customized plans. Thank you to everybody that's reaching out to get a customized plan. If you're new here, I create budget plans for my clients and I also made my own budget products. So I make budgeting easy and simple for you, but hey, don't skip this video. You don't have to get products to start your financial journey. We're going to talk about tips and tricks. We just use my templates to get you started. But you guys, I am so excited because today we're going to be talking about how to budget without a regular income, which is an irregular income. I thought I had a video like this. I kind of do because I'm a business owner, so I'll do videos of me doing my budget and I talk about budgeting with the irregular income. But this time I wanted to go into detail a little bit more. Like if your income changes every single month, maybe you're freelancing, maybe you're in sales, maybe you work in the restaurant industry. So I just want to talk about a way to do this and how to manage it. This was a thing that I get a lot on my website. People asking, well, how do I set up if my income isn't the same? You guys can still budget, and because your income isn't the same, I highly recommend budgeting, you guys. So you want to watch this video all the way to the end. We're going to talk about how to set up a budget even when you don't know when you're going to get paid. We're going to talk about how to prioritize our bills first, all of that good stuff. We're going to talk about budgeting the unpredictable. So if you're in that position, guys, this is a great video and I hope that this video is very helpful for you. And let me know in the comments what you think after you watch this full video. But we're going to talk about all the tips, the tricks, and the fun things to get you started and get you confident with this type of income. I have this type of income, so for me it's been very like funny to, you know, do a budget in this way. But my clients kind of wonder, okay, well, how do I do it? I'm so used to it. And but we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about a lot of stuff. So let's jump into this video, you guys. You guys, so the first thing we're gonna do, if our income isn't always the same every single month, we still want to set up a calendar. But I do want to let you know that we focus on pay cycles and not calendar months when we're doing irregular budget. But I still want you to set up a calendar because it's good to know your month. We're going to be starting with September. Of course, September 1st starts on a Monday. So let's go ahead and fill in that calendar. Let's just see an overview of our month. And we're going to talk about the steps that you're going to do, but let's just fill in our calendar first, you guys, so we have this out the way and it makes it simple when we're getting things set up. Let's fill this in really quickly. I guess I can explain why I'm writing. I don't like to write and talk at the same time because I might accidentally write what I'm typing or talking, or I might mess up. But okay, so you guys, if your income isn't always the same every single month, I want you to go and pull your bank statements. If you're doing direct deposit or if you do cash, I want you to see how much you averaged in the last 3 to 6 months. Yes, the last 3 to 6 months. We're going to go that far back because this is so important that we make sure we're seeing what our high end is and what our low end is, okay? So I want you to pull your bank statements from the last 3 months. So I want you to pull your highest and your lowest. So let's go ahead and write that down. So for this budget, we're gonna put, this is for the month of September. And we're going to go ahead and write down our highest and our lowest on our source here. Usually we don't write an income that we don't have, but we're going to write down what our source is, you guys. So on the first line, we're going to go ahead and put our average low. And then we're going to put our high end. So after you pull those few months, I want you to put your average low and then your high end, right? So our average low on the lower end is going to be $800 per week. So we have $800 times 4, which brings in about $3,200. Now you're going to look at your average. Your average may be different versus somebody else's, but see what you're averaging. And then on the high end, we bring in about additional $100 per week. And of course, you're not going to have the metrics all 100% down. You know, it just depends. So what we're going to do is we're going to budget your average low, right? So this is our monthly income. This is where we write down what we're averaging for the month. So we're going to go ahead and start with our average low. We're going to do an income of $3,200, okay? So this way we can prepare for the worst. So let's say every month our goal is of course to hit this 3,600, but let's say we only hit this 3,200. So our goal we're going to put here is a budget plan. And we're going to write down our lowest income. We want to see, okay, well, 3,200 is our worst case scenario. So that's what we're going to start with, our worst case scenario. And then we have our high case scenario, right? So this gives us a little pinpoint. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is write down our bills and expenses in our calendar. So we want to know what dates our bills are due, because if our income fluctuates, we still want to have a plan for all of our expenses, okay? So let's go ahead and go into our calendar spot. And now we're going to go ahead and write down our bills in the calendar. So on the 1st, we have rent due, which is going to be $1,600. So that is our rent that we spend for the month. And then on the 4th of every single month, we have our utilities, which total to about $120. On the 9th of each month, we have our credit card number 1. And then we have our subscriptions on the 11th, which total to about $30. Okay. And then we have our, let's see here. Then we have our phone plus Wi-Fi, which is $130. And then we have our Navy Fed credit card. So we're going to do credit card number 2. If you want to put the names in there, you can, you guys, but we're just going to put credit card number 1, credit card number 2. $70. On the 23rd, we have car insurance, which is $145. And then we have our car payment due, which is going to be $300. And then that's all for here. Okay, so we have all our bills in our calendar, so we have an overview of that. Now we're going to go ahead and set up our monthly budget. So what are these numbers totaling to? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and I'm trying to make sure that the camera's angled right, you guys. We're gonna go ahead and set up our monthly budget now, the fun stuff, and see what we're totaling to on our bills and expenses. And we're gonna write down all our dates in here too, you guys, the fun stuff. All right, you guys, so now that we set up our dates, let's go ahead and do our monthly budget. So let's go ahead and set this up. So we're gonna put our dates and the amount on here. So we got on the 1st of each month, we have rent. It's gonna be $1,600. All right, and then we have utilities on the 4th, which is going to be $120. And then we have subscriptions. I put those on the variable side, you guys, because you can always cut those. The subscriptions for $30. And then I also forgot to put the amount for the credit one. The credit one is $100, you guys. So for our credit cards, we total about $170. Credit cards also go on the variable side because those can change due to interest rates. You can use the credit card, pay it off, vice versa. So you have credit cards for $170. And then we have our phone plus Wi-Fi on the 12th. Which is going to be $130. And then we have our car insurance on the 23rd for $145. And then our car payment is going to be $300. Okay. All right, now we're gonna put the fun stuff, our variables. How much do we spend on gas for the month? For gas, we spend about $120 on gas. Okay. And then groceries, we spend about $260. I hope the camera's focusing, you guys. You see everything okay? I'll make sure it's focusing good. Okay, perfect. So for groceries, we spend a total of $260. Okay. Spending, we're going to give ourselves a small spending budget just in case we need it. All right. And then eating out, we're also going to give an eating out budget because these things are going to happen whether you budget for it or not. So we're going to put a small budget for it and see where we go. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and add up our expenses, you guys. So we're averaging about $3,200, on the high end about $3,600. So if we go ahead and do the math, let's add this up. 1,600 plus 120 plus 130 plus 145 plus 300. So right off the bat, we're averaging about, let's see here, car insurance 145, utilities for 120. Okay, so we're averaging about $22.95 on our fixed bills. Okay, so we know for the month we at least need to make $22.95 to cover our bills. Okay, so even if you feel like you don't have an average, what is your bill total that you need to make for the month? So we'll start there. Then we have subscriptions, 30 plus 170 plus 120 plus 260 plus 100 plus 80. We average about 760 on our variables. Okay. All right, 760 plus 22.95 is going to bring our expense total to $30.55. Okay, not bad. So we know that even on a average, we're able to cover our bills, and we know on a high end, we're able to cover our bills, right? So let's do 3,200 minus 30.55. We're gonna put 145 in our savings every single month. Now, let's say our goal is that we want to get a month ahead, right? So anybody that's paid on an irregular income, I always recommend trying to get a month ahead. It is going to be the best way for you to budget, and that way you're not stressed if you don't have a super good month or a bad month. So the goal is to always get them a month ahead. So let's talk about the formula for the month ahead. So because we don't have a consistent income and it averages, our goal would be to be a month ahead, right? So let's look at our expenses. So if our average low, we bring in $3,200 and our expenses total to $30.55. Of course, you could cut maybe your spending or whatever the case may be as needed. But let's go ahead and do the math. So we have $145 left over. So if we take 3,200, because that's, or if we take 30.55, this is what our expenses total to be a full month ahead. We would need 30.55 to cover our bills and to cover our variables. But let's say you just want to be a month ahead on bills, right? So what we're going to do is, all we're going to do is take this $22.95 and we're going to divide this by 145. It would take about 16 months for us to get ahead on bills with this type of income, okay? So let's do our other income. So let's say we bring in $3,600 and our expenses total to $30.55. That gives us about $545 left over. So now what you would do is you would take the $22.95 and divide it by 545. It would take roughly about 5 months to get ahead on bills and expenses. So of course, if we can always reach our high end goal, it will help us work on that savings goal. So that's how you plan to be a month ahead, you guys. So let's talk about how we can do that in our budget so we can see that savings growing if we do have additional income. So let's do our paycheck breakdown. But that's the month ahead formula, you guys. So you take your income minus it from your expenses. What's left over, divide it by those expenses you were trying to save. I always say get the month ahead on bills, because a month ahead on bills is a little bit more to leverage with. So like, let's say you made that amount in September, right? So September, you made enough to cover all your bills for the previous month. Then what you're going to go through and do is October, you'll be saving October's money that you get. October's income will be saved for November's expenses. So being a month ahead is very helpful. I hope that formula helps. If you guys have a question about that, make sure you guys let me know in the comments. But let's go ahead and do the paycheck breakdown. All right, you guys, so now we're going to go ahead and start our paycheck breakdown. This is where we're going to write down our weeks of. So even if we don't have a consistent pay schedule, we still want to go ahead and set up our breakdown. This is just our week, so we kind of know what's going on. So we're going to go ahead and do August 31st. And we're going to do this to September 7th. We're doing our Mondays to Sundays, you guys. So whatever the first Monday is versus the first Sunday. I keep forgetting it's just September 1st, you guys. Whatever. But we'll just do the 31st. So September 8th. A part of me just doesn't want to let go of August, I guess. September 8th to September 14th. September 15th. To September 21st. Okay. And then our next week of is the 22nd. And this is just writing our Mondays to Sundays, you guys. We want to know what we have going on in the week. September 22nd to September 28th. And September 29th to October 5th. Okay, we don't really focus on that last week of the month, but we'll still put it in here. Okay, now that we have our weeks of written down, you guys, we're gonna go ahead and break this down to a weekly budget. So we're gonna go ahead and just do an average. So if we're bringing in about $3,200 per month, that gives us about $800 that we're bringing in per week. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do this week by week, you guys. Let's go ahead and do it week by week. I think doing it week by week is gonna be very beneficial. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is start with the first week of the month, okay? So the first week of the month, we're just gonna go ahead and do our payday as on the 5th. So that way we're just doing a standard day where we'll add up all of our money and see what we're going to cover. So we're just going to go ahead and do our paydays as Friday, you guys, even though it's technically not a full payday since we don't have a scheduled payday, but you know what I mean. It's the end of the week. We're going to go ahead and check in with our money and see what we're going to cover with whatever we made for the week. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put payday is going to be 9/5. And let's say we brought in exactly $800 this paycheck. So we brought in $800. Every single paycheck, because we average at least $800, we're going to make sure $400 of that goes towards our rent. Our rent is a total of $1,600, you guys. The main thing we want to do is we always want to make sure that we budget our bare minimum things, you guys. These are non-negotiables. Every single week, we want to make sure we're putting up money for rent because we don't want to get behind on rent. So every single week, even if we're on the lower income, we still want to make sure that we're bringing in that money for rent. So guys, I'm going to do this budget only on the lower income, but you get my gist of how you can adjust it if your income changes. And we're going to talk about that as we get deeper into the budget. But we're going to go ahead and prioritize for sure putting rent for every week. Okay, every week our goal is to put $400. If we're bringing in $800, we for sure want to cover that rent no matter what. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and break that rent down. I'm gonna go ahead and put this as covered. We'll just highlight it. We'll do green this week. So we also have to cover our utilities this week. This would technically be I'm sorry, you guys, so this technically wouldn't be the payday of the 5th. This will be the last payday of August. So I kind of did those dates wrong. So the rent will still cover the rent, but utilities will be covered with previous paycheck. So put this as previous week, just because it's due after the 5th when we technically would get paid. So we're not gonna worry about that. We're just gonna cover the rent. Or you know what, we'll say we have to cover the utilities with this. Let's say we had a shorter week the previous week, so we're actually covering utilities with this check. So let's go ahead and cancel this out. We're gonna cancel that out, and we're gonna go ahead and say we had to move our utilities because we didn't get enough pay. So let's go ahead and move the utilities to this week. So we got utilities for 120. We got to catch up on the utility bill, so let's do that. And then let's go ahead and see what we have the next following week. So we have our payday on the 5th. We have our credit card. We have subscriptions. And then this will fall on the next considered payday, you guys. So we're going to go ahead and put this in here. Credit card will have to be covered for this week, which is $100. And this is the minimum. So a credit card have a minimum of $100. Subscriptions will come out this week for $30. Okay. And then we also have our stuff that we need to cover for our bills. Also, you guys, so for the utilities, let's even put it into perspective. Let's say you make tips every single day, whatever the case may be. Let's say you made this money on the 3rd and then you just added it to your week of income. So it just depends on how your expenses fluctuate, but we're gonna go ahead and add those utilities in there. And then our goal is, of course, to try to cover things ahead where we can if we have a stronger pay period, so that way we're not questioning it. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish our variables. So we have our rent, our utilities, our credit card, our subscriptions. Now this is the fun stuff. So the gas, the groceries, the spending, the eating out. If we brought in $800 this week, let's go ahead and see what our expenses total to so far. So we got 400 plus 120 plus 100 plus 30. We total to about $650 in our bills and expenses. So if we're doing our math and we're dividing this, for groceries or gas, we spend about $120 a month. Let's say we broke that down into 4. Each week we're putting money for that. So we'll put $30 for gas each week. And then groceries, we got $260 a month. 260 divided by 4. Groceries, we're going to try to do $65 per week. And this is what we're averaging on the week. Okay. And then we have eating out for $80 a month. So if we have enough, we can go ahead and get our eating out the way in a budget, plan it. It's in there. We have room for it. And then we also have our spending for $100. So let's go ahead and do spending for $25. Okay. Now let's go ahead and add this up. What do we total to for this week? 400 plus 120. We total for our fixed bills to $520. Okay. Then we have a credit card, subscription, gas, groceries, eating out, and then spending for $25. So our variables would total to $270. $270 plus $520. Our expenses this week total to $790. And once again, guys, you can adjust this. You don't have to eat out. You don't have to have spending. We're just putting it in there, which gives us about $10 in our savings because the income for this week was $800 and $790 went out. So once again, even if you don't know what your income is going to be, based off your expenses, we know for this week we would total about $790. So now if you need to move some things around, maybe you need to move your credit card to the next payment or whatever the case is, you know, based off what your income will be. Now let's go to the next week. The next week we have, let's see here. The next week would basically be our payday of the 12th if we combine it into one paycheck. Or one pay period. Just the 12th is where we're going to look at everything and set up our schedule. So let's say the 12th came and we're going to go ahead and write payday of 9/12. And let's say this week we only brought $750 in. So let's say this week we only brought $750 in. We know for a fact out of that $750 we have to cover our rent. So now we're down to, so $750 minus $400. We have $350 left. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at our bills. So we have the phone and Wi-Fi, which we will need to cover. So we're gonna minus $130 for that. Our phone and Wi-Fi, and let's go ahead and use a different color. Go ahead and do this week. So we know we got to cover the phone and Wi-Fi, which totals us to about $130. Okay, phone and Wi-Fi for $130. And then we also have the credit card, but the credit card doesn't come out till the 19th, so that technically will be a new week, a new schedule. So we're gonna ignore the credit card, but we have a really high car payment, so we're gonna go ahead and split our car payment here, right? So car payment, $300. 300 divided by 2 is about $150. So we're just gonna go ahead and get ahead on our car payment. Even though it's a slower week, we're still gonna put money aside for that car payment to be covered. Okay, 400 plus 130 plus 150, we're at about 680 on our variables. Remember guys, our goal is to get ahead on bills wherever we can. So yes, we're having a slower week, but we still want to cover those bills. Okay, what are the things that we for sure have to repeat every week? We have to repeat gas and we have to repeat groceries. So we're gonna go ahead and do gas for $30. And then let's say groceries, we're okay with getting away with $40 just because we're tighter this week. And you guys will see why we did the car payment into 2 once we get to the next week. So groceries we'll just do as $40, which is going to be $70 for this week. 680 plus 70 brings us to exactly $750 this week. Every penny wants to have a purpose when we have a budget that's not always consistent, you guys. So that way, once again, we're already ahead on our bills. Bills are the main priority that we want to take care of, okay? So now we're going to go to the next week, which is the week of the 19th. And then let me just go ahead and section this off for you guys so it's not overcrowded and it doesn't feel overwhelming. Go ahead and section this off like it's still a payday schedule. Then go ahead and section this off. I hope all of this is making sense, you guys. And then once again, if your income is higher, you just put more money in your savings, you guys. Very simple and easy to follow. So that's everything we'll cover for that week. So let's go ahead and do a rerun of what we did. So this week we brought in $800, which was our average. Boom, this is everything we covered with that. Our next week we only brought in $750. Let's just say our average was lower this week, so we're trying to prepare for whatever may happen. We brought in $750. We're for sure going to put that money up for rent. We got to cover that phone, we got to cover that car payment, we're going to fill up our gas tank, and we're going to spend $40 on groceries. And then once again, we're just adjusting as we go. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next week. The next week is going to be the week of, let's see here, the week of the 19th. So we're going to put this as the 19th week, and we're trying to cover everything from the 19th basically until the 26th, because that will be our next week where we add up all of our income. Okay, and let's say this week we brought in $900. We actually brought in a little bit more money this week. So we're going to go ahead and do payday, and we're gonna do this as $919. And let's say we brought in $900 this week. We brought in just a little bit more, so we're for sure gonna cover that credit number 2, our car insurance, and then we're also gonna finish off that car payment just so we're ahead. Our goal is to always pay something ahead, you guys, when we can. That way, if our week doesn't go as planned, we always have something paid ahead. So we're going to go ahead and do our car insurance. $145. Car payment. $150. And then I'm going to put a note that paid ahead. Because the car payment technically isn't due to the 26th of the month. So just like that, you guys, we already paid the car payment for the month, and we don't have to stress about trying to scramble to get that $300 if our paycheck doesn't go as planned. Okay, so we have our car payment, and then we have the Navy Fed credit card. So credit card number 2, which was $70. All right, and then this week, since we did have to go a little lower on groceries, we're gonna go ahead and just spend just a little bit more on groceries. Our grocery average is $65, so why don't we go ahead and do, let's see, 65 minus 40. The previous week we missed out on about $25 of groceries, so why don't we just go ahead and put a little bit more money towards groceries this week. So groceries, let's say we do, it's usually 65. Why don't we just go ahead and add an extra $20 to the groceries? So 65 is the average plus 20. We're gonna do $85 on groceries this week. And then we're gonna go ahead and fill up our gas tank because we spend $30 on that every single week. Okay, so 400 plus 145 plus 150. Our bills, $695. And then 70 plus 85 plus 30. Our variables total to about 185. 185 plus 695 is about 880 this week. Okay, $900 is what we brought in minus 880. We have $10 left over in our savings. So not super big savings, but hey, it's giving us something to work with, okay? Something to work with, okay? Alright, you guys, and that was our first 3 weeks of the month, you guys. So everything is looking good. We're ahead on our bills, our rent's taken care of, all of our expenses are good to go. Once again, our average is still pretty close. We did have a little bit more, but once again, we're still trying to quote on that 3,200 spot. So how much income did we bring in so far for the first 3 weeks? 800 plus 750 plus 900. We brought in about 2,400 of this 3,200 so far. So now let's go to the next week, and the next week we're going to bring in $800. Okay, so this week we're gonna go straight back to our average, and then this week was the payday of, let's see, or the week of the 26th. So this would be payday 9/26. That's when we'll check in with our finances, and we'll bring in $800. Once again, we're automatically gonna do that rent, and we don't really have any bills or expenses due around this time frame, you guys. But what's good to do is plan ahead once again. So the first will be coming up again. The first will be right here, so we already be ahead for the rent part for the first. And then we're also going to go ahead and cover our utilities in advance. So we're going to go ahead and just take it upon ourselves to take care of those utilities, because remember last month we got behind on the utilities. So for this week we're going to go ahead and do utilities for $120, and this would be the utilities for October. And of course those can change, but we're just going to put the average, and we're going to put paid ahead, so you can see the bills that we're paying ahead and have that noted. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and go back and write down our average. We have gas, which is going to be $30, groceries $65, and then we have spending $25, and then we have eating out for $20. Okay, 400 plus 120, 520 for bills this following week. 30 plus 65 plus 25 plus eating out for 20 is about 140 for our variables. 140 plus 520 is 660. All right. $800 minus 660. We have 140 in our savings. And remember guys, we would have more in our savings, but we paid something ahead. So if we waited till next week, we technically could cover the utilities for the next week, but we got ahead. So we'll put 140 in our savings as our buffer. So let's talk about a buffer in our savings. So once we do our budget, right, let's talk about everything we did here, you guys. Let's go and do a let's talk about real quick, because we talked about a lot. Sorry guys, the camera's not focusing. Is it focusing now? Okay, so we talked about a lot. So what about a buffer account? Okay, so as you can see, the first thing we did, you guys, was set up our calendar. What is our months looking like? What do we have going on? What's our average? What's our high end? We focus on the average low, you guys, because anything else, we'll be putting that money in our savings and preparing for the next previous month. So I would say this is called the buffer account. So what a buffer account is we'll create a holding account. So when you have a bigger check or you have a savings left over, our cash surplus was supposed to be like 145, so we did still stick to that savings, and once again we paid something ahead. So our goal is to always try to pay ahead. If you guys didn't want to put the utilities, you can see we'll have more money saved, because we did bring in a little extra money this month, and then we did cut some of our expenses down, like our eating out, our groceries, and things like that. So the goal for you to do is to monitor your spending as you go, right? So as you're bringing in income, we're giving every penny a purpose. So as you can see, we brought in $800. That $800 had a purpose. We brought in $750. That $750 had a purpose. We brought in that $900. That $900 had a purpose. Vice versa. So for the month, we saved $10 the first week. We put that in a savings. The next week, we saved $10. And then we also saved $140. So in total for the month of September, we would have saved $160. Not a lot of a big difference from the $145 that we averaged, but that $165 can now go in a buffer account for the next month. So let's say we get paid again and we have a short check. We have $160 that we have for that. So our goal is to always save when we don't have a predictable income. So our starting balance for this month of September will be $160 as our starting balance. Okay, so if you didn't have a savings before, this just shows what you're going to do with that income, you guys. So remember, our goal is to give every penny a purpose, build a buffer where we can, and try to pay ahead. Okay, all right, you guys, so keep in mind, if you want to ignore the income and act like the income doesn't exist, that's something you could do as well, and then move your expenses around as you go. But once again, guys, this is the plan. Start with our bare minimum needs, right? So our fixed bills, priority. We always want to make sure our bills are covered, non-negotiables. We can adjust this as we go. We don't have to eat out every single week. We don't have to have spending every single week, just so we're managing our budget, you guys. This is going to look different because you don't have a consistent income. You need to make sure that you're budgeting for those things or adjusting as needed, right? So anything extra will go towards our savings, just because we're trying to make sure that we're staying afloat for if things happen or income changes. Okay, and then we want to create that holding account, which once again, if we have extra money, we're going to either pay something ahead and we can put it in our savings and pay it ahead, or we can just pay it ahead right then and there in our paycheck breakdown. So your goal is to always set up your breakdown for each week. That is the best advice I can give for that. And once again, we're working in pay cycles and not just focus on the calendar month. So as you can see, each week we kind of set, this is what we're averaging, this is what we're going to do. And last but not least, every penny has a purpose. So I hope this video was helpful, you guys. I feel like we did talk about a lot. So if you guys have any questions in the comments, please let me know. Or if you are irregular income, how do you usually budget your income, knowing that your income isn't always the same every single month? Let me know in the comments. Or if you are paid irregular, you guys, and you have been budgeting for a while, what is a method that you do that works for you? Thank you guys again for watching. I hope this video was helpful. I'll see you guys on my next video, my loves. Bye.